Emily Saunders had become part of the building, or so her co-workers joked. She laughed along when they said it, but she knew it wasn't a joke. At 34, divorced, no kids, and no close friends left in the city, the office was her entire world. While others rushed out at 5, she stayed behind. The hum of printers, the low buzz of fluorescent lights, the click of her mouse, this was her rhythm. Tuesday night. The glass towers of downtown Chicago were lit like circuitry against the night sky. Markham and White's office on the 24th floor was silent except for Emily's soft tapping on her keyboard. She was finalizing a set of quarterly reports the partners wanted on their desks by morning. Her cheap desk lamp cast a cone of light on the paperwork as the rest of the room sank into shadow. At 7:13 p.m., the overhead lights down the hallway clicked off automatically. Motion sensors. She didn't move. Then, a quiet beep came from her screen. The company's security feed, usually minimized, had popped open in the bottom corner. Probably a software update or maintenance script, she thought. Until she saw it. On camera 4, the hallway near the server room, a figure. Just for a second. Moving past the frame. Not a shadow. Not a reflection. Someone walking. They were tall, wearing dark clothes. No face visible. Emily stared. Rewound the footage. Nothing. She scrubbed back again. The figure was gone. Like it had never been there. She stood up, unsure whether it was instinct or disbelief driving her. She crossed the office, her heels soft on the carpet. The motion lights came on, buzzing faintly. Empty desks. Empty conference room. The copier in the corner was dark and still. The server room door was closed. She hesitated, then tried the handle. But exactly as it should be. Her badge didn't grant access, and no one should have been inside after hours without authorization. Back at her desk, she found the security feed had returned to its idle loop, 4 angles, rotating every 10 seconds. Except now the server room camera was showing a black screen. No signal. Her fingers hovered above the keyboard. Then behind her, down the hall, something clattered. A single, sharp sound, like a filing cabinet drawer snapping shut. Emily didn't move. Her ears strained. Nothing followed. Maybe it was just air pressure. Or the HVAC system. Maybe. She turned back to the screen. The security feed flickered again. A different hallway camera now showed the break room. Someone was standing inside. Not moving. Just standing. Watching the door. And the timestamp in the corner said it had been recorded 13 minutes ago. But she had walked past that same break room just moments earlier. And it had been empty. Emily stood frozen, her eyes fixed on the grainy footage. The figure in the break room didn't move. His back was to the camera. Broad shoulders. Head slightly tilted. It wasn't anyone she recognized, not from HR, not from IT, not even the cleaning crew. And he was wearing something strange. A dark hoodie or jacket, but the hood was pulled low, almost unnaturally low, covering the top half of his head. The footage ended in a quiet glitch, like an old VHS tape eaten by a machine. Then the feed returned to its usual cycle. No sign of the break room. No sign of anyone. Emily pushed her chair back slowly. The wheels squeaked. She stood up and glanced at the hallway again. Still empty. She walked toward the break room. Each step sounded louder than it should. Her reflection moved with her in the darkened glass walls of the offices she passed. She felt it then, that sensation like she was being followed. Like there were eyes behind her, not hostile but too still. Too expectant. When she reached the break room, she paused by the door. No sound came from inside. No light. She flicked it on. The room was empty. Microwave. Coffee machine. Empty table. But the chair in the corner was pulled out slightly, angled as if someone had been sitting there. Or still was. She stepped inside and checked her phone for the time. 7:41 p.m. Her heart was racing. She didn't even know why. Nothing had happened. Not really. She just didn't feel alone. Back at her desk, she opened the security software manually. Navigated through the archived footage. Break room. 7:28 p.m. There he was again. Standing still. She let the footage play. At 7:29 p.m., he turned his head, slowly, toward the camera. Even in the pixelated blur, she could see his mouth. Wide open. Smiling. Too wide. No eyes beneath the hood. Just darkness. And then the screen turned to static. No recorded footage after that time. Emily sat back in her chair, staring at her monitor. Was it a prank? An old recording someone had spliced in? But who would go through that much effort? She picked up the office phone and dialed building security. It rang twice, then went dead. No click. Just silence. She hung up. Then it rang back. Startled, she let it ring once, twice, before lifting the receiver. Static. Then faint breathing. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. Whoever was on the line exhaled slowly. Then very clearly whispered, "You left the light on in the break room." Emily slammed the phone down. The office was quiet again. But now the break room light was flickering down the hallway. She hadn't touched the switch. Emily backed away from her desk. The break room light continued to flicker, erratic, pulsing, like a warning. She watched it from the edge of the hallway, hands clenched at her sides. She wanted to leave. Just grab her bag and go. But her keys were in her drawer. And something about turning her back felt wrong. Too vulnerable. She took one step toward the flickering door. Then another. The lights above her buzzed softly. A faint electrical whine filled the air, like the building itself was holding its breath. She peeked around the doorway into the break room. The light bulb in the ceiling sputtered once more and then died completely, leaving her in shadow. The chair that had been pulled out earlier was now turned. Facing the door. She hadn't touched it. She stepped back and bumped into the hallway wall. Her breathing was quick now, shallow. She turned and hurried back to her desk, grabbed her phone, and opened the building's emergency contact app. No signal. She moved closer to the window, holding it up, trying to catch a single bar. Nothing. She checked the landline again, still dead. Trying to calm herself, she went to the main security panel in the office, just past the elevator bay. It was mounted behind a locked glass case, but there was a key hanging nearby. She opened the panel and checked the system logs. 7:13 p.m., motion detected, server room hallway. 7:28 p.m., unidentified access attempt, break room rear exit. 7:30 p.m., security camera feed interrupted, camera 4. 7:34 p.m., access denied, employee badge ID 45813. Emily paused. That was her badge. She checked her ID. The numbers matched. But she hadn't tried to access anything at 7:34 p.m. She had been sitting at her desk, watching the footage. She stared at the log again. Right underneath, another entry appeared. 7:49 p.m., access granted. Employee badge ID 45813. Location, server room. Her heart skipped. She hadn't gone near the server room. She didn't even have clearance. She checked the hallway cameras. The server room feed was back now. It showed the door just as before. And now, open. Just slightly. Like someone had gone inside. Or was waiting inside. Emily stepped back from the screen. Then the feed glitched. For 1 second, just one, she saw something inside. Not a person. A shape. Punched. Long-limbed. Like it had folded itself into the far corner of the room. And in the moment before the feed cut out again, it turned its head toward the camera. Toward her. The lights in the hallway behind her dimmed slightly. The hum of the building's systems grew louder. And her badge, still clipped to her sweater, beeped softly. Access granted. Emily's badge had never beeped like that before. She looked down at it, a small green light pulsing in the corner. It wasn't supposed to do anything unless she tapped it on a door scanner. Access granted. But to where? She opened the company's intranet and logged into the employee access portal. Her fingers trembled. She navigated to the ID history logs, hoping to see what door had just accepted her badge. 7:49 p.m., server room. 7:52 p.m., executive office level, access denied. 7:53 p.m., executive office level, access denied. 7:54 p.m., executive office level, access granted. Her badge didn't have that kind of clearance. Not even close. And she hadn't tried to go there. Someone, or something, was using her ID. She quickly checked the live employee status report. It showed who was currently logged into the building system. There was only one name listed. Emily Saunders, floor 24. Just her. No security staff. No janitors. No one else. The elevator logs confirmed it. The last person to use the elevator had been Emily, at 6:02 p.m. No other movement recorded. So how had someone entered the executive floor? She clicked back to the security feeds. All 4 cameras on floor 25, the executive level, were active. But 3 showed nothing but quiet, empty offices. The 4th was facing the hallway that led to the private conference room. That's where she saw it. A figure moving slowly down the corridor. The same figure from the break room. Still hooded. Still faceless. But this time, it walked past the door and stopped at the end of the hallway, facing the camera directly. It raised one hand and slowly pressed its fingers to the lens. The feed cut to black. Emily slammed her laptop shut. Her chair rolled back with a screech. She stood up too fast, almost lost her balance. She needed to leave. She ran for the elevator. Pressed the button. Waited. Nothing. She pressed it again. Harder. No sound. No movement. She turned to the stairwell and pushed the door open. Inside, the light flickered. Dust spiraled in the air. She started down the stairs, her footsteps echoing in the narrow concrete chamber. 24th floor. 23rd. 22nd. Then she stopped. A sound echoed from below. Not footsteps. Breathing. Long, slow. Labored. Then came the creak of a door farther down. She froze. A metallic scrape followed, something being dragged across the floor. She backed up a step. Then another. The stairwell light above her blinked twice. Then dimmed. She turned around and bolted back up the stairs to the office. Back inside, she locked the stairwell door behind her and slumped against it, chest heaving. Her phone vibrated in her pocket. One notification. A new email. Subject line, "Thank you for staying late, Emily." No sender. No message body. Just a single attachment. A photo of her sitting at her desk. Taken from behind. Moments ago. Emily stared at the photo on her screen. It was her chair. Her desk. Her exact posture. The same angle as if someone had been standing just a few feet behind her. But she hadn't heard anything. No footsteps. No breath. She checked the file info. No metadata. No timestamp. She deleted it. Then opened her webcam app. Turned it on. Black screen. Something had disabled her camera. She got up from her desk and began unplugging everything. Laptop, phone charger, monitor, yanking cables with shaking hands. The power cord sparked as it came loose. She grabbed her purse and keys from the drawer. She was leaving. She moved toward the elevators again and jabbed the call button with her thumb. Still dead. She turned to the large glass windows that overlooked the city. Cars moved along the street below like silent beetles, lights flickering between red and green. A world still turning. Still real. But something about the office felt sealed off. Like she dropped through a crack in the night and landed somewhere just slightly off from the rest of reality. She ran to the emergency stairwell again. This time, when she opened the door, it was pitch black. All the stairwell lights had gone out. A cold draft blew upward from below. It carried with it a smell she didn't recognize. Not dust. Not mold. Something faintly metallic. Like old blood. She slammed the door and backed away. The office phone began ringing. She jumped. It rang again. A shrill, unnatural tone that echoed off the walls. She let it ring. On the 5th ring it stopped. Then her laptop lit up on its own. It had been unplugged. Still, the screen glowed softly, casting long shadows behind her. It displayed a terminal window. Plain white text on a black background. "Hello, Emily. Would you like to log out? Y/N. Her fingers hovered above the keyboard. She didn't touch anything. The cursor blinked, then typed on its own. But the lights in the office went out. All at once. Everything. Total black. She couldn't see her hands in front of her face. She stayed still. Waited. Then, slowly, the emergency lights buzzed on overhead, dull red strips along the baseboards, casting just enough glow to see the outline of the hallway. And something standing at the far end. Still facing her. Not moving. Not speaking. Not blinking. She couldn't see its face. Only the shape of its arms, too long, hanging at its sides. It began walking forward. Not fast. One step at a time. Silent. Emily turned and ran. Back through the office. Past rows of empty cubicles. The dim red light warped the shadows into something cruel and jagged. She reached the supply closet and ducked inside, pulling the door shut behind her. Darkness. No light. No sound. Just her breath. She pressed her ear against the door. Nothing. A single knock. So slow. Right at her head level. Then silence. Emily didn't move. The knock had been gentle, almost polite. But it vibrated through the wood like it had weight behind it. Like whoever, or whatever, was on the other side wasn't trying to force their way in. Not yet. She held her breath for what felt like an entire minute. No sound came. No footsteps. No breathing. No whisper. Just the soft whir of the building's ancient ventilation system above her. She waited 5 more minutes before easing the door open by an inch. The hallway was empty. Red emergency lights still pulsed low along the floor, painting everything in that same eerie glow. Her shadow stretched out before her like something reaching for escape. She crept out, barefoot now, heels abandoned under her desk. She moved silently, careful not to bump into anything. There had to be another exit. Maintenance always used the freight elevator at the rear of the office. It had an old manual lock system and didn't rely on building access like the main lifts. She made her way to the far end of the floor. Past the HR cubicles. Past the old file archive cabinets that hadn't been touched in years. At the end of the hallway was the freight elevator. A wide steel door with an ancient rotary handle. She grabbed the wheel and turned. It wouldn't budge. She pulled harder. The metal groaned. Then gave. The doors slid apart slowly, revealing the inside of the lift, dim, but operational. A single light bulb swung from the ceiling, casting a slow, hypnotic circle on the grated floor. She stepped in, closed the gate, and pressed the ground floor button. Nothing happened. No noise. No motion. Just silence. Then the bulb flickered. And the floor indicator above the door changed. 24, 25, 26. She hadn't pressed those. She hit the ground floor button again, then the emergency stop. The buttons didn't respond. 27, 28. There was no 28th floor. The building stopped at 27. The elevator shuddered. Then stopped. Total stillness. Emily backed into the corner, eyes locked on the doors. She reached for the manual override lever. Before she could touch it, something hit the door from the other side. Not a hand. Something heavier. Closer. The light bulb swayed harder now, casting wild shadows across the grated floor. She pressed her back into the metal wall, trembling. The banging stopped. A faint scraping sound began. Nails. Or metal. Scratching along the outside of the lift door. Tracing lazy circles. Testing. Then a voice came through the grating. Not loud. Not aggressive. Just strong. Like it was inside her head more than outside the door. You don't belong here, Emily. She didn't answer. The elevator began to move again. Downward. Too fast. The light blew out, plunging her into darkness as the freight elevator plunged downward, far past the basement. Far past anything on the blueprints. The elevator screeched to a stop. Emily was thrown forward, slamming into the cage gate. Her shoulder ached, but she hardly noticed. The air was different now, colder, thicker, like it hadn't moved in years. The lights above flickered back on, but dimmer than before. A pale, grayish glow buzzed from a cracked fluorescent tube hanging by a single wire. The panel above the door didn't display a floor number. Just a blinking red underscore. She opened the gate slowly. A hallway stretched before her, long, silent, and wrong. The floor was concrete. Walls unfinished. Pipes exposed. Dust coated everything. It looked like no part of the office building she knew. Like a basement that had never been built for people. And yet, it was clean. No trash. No decay. Just silence. She stepped out, shoes crunching faintly on the concrete. As soon as her foot left the elevator, the doors shut behind her and the lift began rising again. She lunged to stop it, but it was already gone, leaving her in a place that shouldn't exist. She walked forward, the hallway stretching endlessly. At the far end, a door stood slightly ajar. She didn't want to go near it, but there was nowhere else to go. No stairs. No phones. No exit signs. Only that one door. When she reached it, she paused. A low hum came from the other side. Machinery? Or breathing? She pushed the door open. Inside was an office. A perfect replica of hers, same layout, same furniture, same desk. But everything was off. The walls were stained a dull yellow. The monitors were old, bulky CRTs from the 90s. And there were no windows. Just four walls. No light from outside. In the center of the desk was a photo frame. Her face stared back at her from it, but not the photo she remembered. It was her sitting at the office Christmas party, smiling. But behind her, barely in frame, was the hooded figure. Standing. Watching. She dropped the frame. Then the monitor flickered to life. Lines of green code scrolled down the screen, fast and meaningless. Until it stopped. One sentence blinked into view. You are already logged out. She backed toward the door. Then she heard it. The sound of footsteps outside the hallway. But not walking. Dragging. Something heavy being pulled across the concrete. The light above the desk dimmed and turned red. A soft knock came on the door behind her. One knock. Then a second. Then it opened, on its own. And the lights in the office began to shut down one by one, moving toward her. Emily bolted back into the hallway. The light from the office clicked off behind her, swallowing the room in darkness. She didn't look back. She couldn't. Her breath caught in her throat as she ran, her footfalls echoing sharply off the concrete. But the hallway wasn't the same anymore. It bent slightly now. Curved where it had been straight. And the end, where the elevator should have been, was gone, replaced by a wall of mirrors. Each panel stood 8 feet tall, rimmed with metal that looked rusted and wet. The reflections in the mirrors shimmered faintly, like she was looking at water instead of glass. She approached slowly. Her reflection stared back, pale, wide-eyed, panting. Then, without blinking, her reflection smiled. Emily did not. The grin widened too far, lips peeling back to reveal teeth that weren't hers. The reflection stepped forward, but Emily hadn't moved. She stumbled back. All the mirrored panels began to ripple. Hands, dozens, pushed against the glass from inside. Some small, some unnaturally large, all pale and twitching. A sudden crack burst through the center mirror. Then another. The reflections began to distort wildly. Her image stretched and convulsed. One by one, the mirrored versions of her began doing different things, screaming silently, pulling at their hair, clawing at the glass. One banged its forehead against the panel until it left a red smear. Emily turned and ran again. But now the hallway was shifting. Every time she passed a door, it slammed shut behind her, even though she hadn't touched them. She kept running until she hit a corner. A dead end. No doors. No exit. Just one single motion sensor light above, blinking slowly, casting a pale circle around her feet. She turned in place. No footsteps behind her. No sound. Nothing. Then, across the wall, words began to appear, scratched into the concrete as if by invisible nails. One line at a time. You don't remember logging in. But you never logged out. You've been here. You've always been here. Emily backed away from the wall. And her heel hit something soft. She spun around. A chair. An old swivel chair. Exactly like the one at her desk. Sitting in front of it was a small, dusty monitor. It flickered to life without touch. A camera feed appeared on the screen. It was showing her desk. Back on floor 24. Someone was sitting there. From behind, it looked like her. Same sweater. Same posture. The figure typed on the keyboard slowly. Then turned its head toward the camera. Its face was her own, but twisted. Eyes empty. Smile fixed. It waved. Behind her, a door unlatched. Emily turned. The freight elevator was open again. Inside stood the figure from the monitor. No face. Just that long, thin body, filling the space like it had been waiting for her. It stepped out. And the mirrors shattered behind her. Emily ran. Not toward the elevator, not toward the mirrors, just away. But away no longer led anywhere. The hallway behind her folded in on itself, the ground rumbling as if the entire floor was shifting beneath her feet. The shadows on the walls moved on their own now, stretching long fingers that brushed the floor behind her. She passed doors that weren't there before. Each one had her name etched into it. Emily Saunders, payroll. Emily Saunders, security admin. Emily Saunders, janitorial. Like versions of a life she'd never lived but somehow had. She burst into one of them. It was her office again. Normal. Desk, chair, monitor. Her coat on the hook. Her cold coffee cup still sweating on the coaster. It was exactly 6:03 p.m. She spun around and looked through the office window toward the hallway outside. Everything there was normal too. A janitor pushed a cart down the hall. Someone from HR was tapping away on a keyboard at the far cubicle. The building was full. Alive. She opened the door. No red lights. No flickering. Even the elevator down the hall gave its usual soft chime as it opened. Emily stepped out into the hallway. The sound of the HVAC system returned, soft and low. She walked slowly to the elevator and stepped in. Pressed. It worked. As she descended, the building lights changed floor by floor. Normal. Unbroken. But as she passed floor 12, she noticed something. The elevator display blinked briefly, not showing a number. Just a line of symbols. Hashtag yen command increment. Then it corrected itself. Floor 11. Floor 10. The doors opened to the lobby. Reception was empty, but the exit doors were right there, glowing gently from the streetlights outside. She stepped out. Walked past the empty front desk. Hand reached for the glass door. Then stopped. In the reflection of the door, she saw her own face. Smiling. But she wasn't. Her reflection was half a second too slow. It blinked after she did. Moved after her hand had already dropped. And in its eyes was something else. Something older. Something waiting. A vibration in her pocket. Her work phone. A notification. System error. You are already active in another session. She backed away from the door slowly. Turned toward the building. All the lights were on. But no one was inside. Except her. From everywhere and nowhere, the PA system buzzed to life. A distorted voice whispered, "Override complete." The exit door clicked shut. And all the hallway lights began turning off again. By one. By one. Emily ran back into the main lobby. But it wasn't the same anymore. The marble tiles had turned to dull concrete. The plants were gone. The artwork vanished. The air felt colder, heavy with something unspeakable. The overhead lights buzzed violently, dimming one by one in a path behind her. She pushed through a staff-only door and found herself in the basement level. But it wasn't the real basement. This one was vast, wider than the building footprint. Endless rows of cubicles stretched into blackness, each with a monitor flickering softly, displaying green code that never stopped scrolling. 1,000 screens. And 1,000 people sitting silently. All of them looked just like her. Variations of herself, some older, some younger, some decayed like they'd been sitting there for years. All dressed in different iterations of her work attire. None moved. None blinked. Frozen in mid-typing. As if caught in a loop. As if they had never left work. Emily backed away, breath quickening. Then she heard the typing. Real, fast, frantic typing. Coming from one of the desks behind her. She turned. One version of herself, This one pale, eyes sunken, lips stitched into a ragged smile, was slamming keys wildly. Blood was dripping down her chin, but she didn't stop. On the screen in front of her, a message repeated over and over. Still working. Still working. Still working. Still. Emily screamed and ran. She ducked into a side hallway, narrow and closing in fast. The walls pressed closer with every step. At the end of the corridor, a red exit sign glowed. She threw herself toward it. Grabbed the handle. It opened. Behind it wasn't the street. It wasn't anything. Just a black, endless server room. Floor-to-ceiling machines, blinking red and green. The hum of electricity so loud it drowned her thoughts. Cables ran along the floor like veins. Some ended in the wall. Some disappeared into darkness. One of them pulsed faintly and led directly to a terminal screen. She approached it. The text on the screen was already waiting for her. Final login detected. Session merge initiated. Welcome back, Emily. Then a reflection appeared on the glass of the monitor. Not hers, but the same figure from the elevator, the one with no face. It stood just behind her, unmoving. She turned, but nothing was there. She looked back. The screen now showed her own face, expressionless. And the words, "You are the system now." Her legs gave out. She collapsed in the middle of the cables, hands still twitching as if trying to type. Her mouth moved, but no sound came. Then everything went dark. The only sound left was the soft click of keys. Somewhere far below the city. In a room no one remembers building. Where someone is always working. Always typing. Always alone.